What's going on, everybody? It's Brian Tripp. I'm here in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. Beautiful, sweltering hot Birmingham, Alabama. So glad you decided to join us today for another episode of the RMI Masterclass podcast. We're Alabama's only real estate podcast. A lot of times we love to get local guests on, local to Alabama. We have a local guest that we're going to get to in just a second. We also bring on national guests that provide us with national perspective on where Birmingham kind of sits in that national landscape. So we like to do that as well. Today we have Scott Long that we're going to get to in just 1 second. We're going to talk about some property management. I really just want to make some announcements. I haven't done this in a while. Guys, make sure you're coming to our RIA meetings. If you live in the Birmingham or greater Birmingham area, even if you're in Huntsville or a Montgomery, we get a lot of people that are coming up from those areas as well. Come check us out. We're the second Thursday night of every single month. Our next meeting is July 12th. We're at the Embassy Suites Hotel. Get started around 6 o'clock. Second Thursday of every month. We've got some great speakers lined up for August, September, October. We pretty much have speakers booked through the end of the year. So we've got some tremendous people that are coming in to speak to us. You can learn more about us at facebook.com/Alaria. It's ALAREIA. I also want to let you guys know we have a lot of new listeners that have been contacting me lately. I haven't mentioned this in a while. Our next real estate boot camp is coming up in September. We just had one in early June. We do this every 3 months. Our next one is coming up September 6th, 7th, and 8th. And you can register for that super cheap, guys, to get 3 full days of real estate education with me and with my good friend Joe Turney. We teach this class. It goes September 6th, 7th, 8th, 3 full days. And it's dirt cheap price. You can register or learn more at alariaworkshop.com. Again, it's ALAREIA workshop.com. So I want to get into talking about some property management. We've got Mr. Scott Long with us today. How's it going, Scott?
Man, we're doing great, Brian. How are you? Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. No, we're doing good. It's been a while since we talked about property management. Scott is with RMI Realty Group, and we are very fortunate to have you guys on board as one of our vendors, one of our sponsors at Alaria, that we could not do it without you. So I just want to say thank you before we even go any further. Thank you for your support of what we do, and let's dig in.
Well, you're very welcome. We're excited to be a part of Alaria.
Awesome. Well, I want to dig in. I want to talk about property management for sure. I actually want to give some tips. You obviously have a property management company,
right?
But I want to give some tips to that mom and pop who may want to try to even do it on their own. You and I both know that property management is a tough business.
That's right.
So we don't advise you to do it on your own, but some people just want to kind of do everything on their own. We want to give them some tips on maybe what they can do. And we also would love to give people some tips, maybe people who are already using a property manager or need a property manager, what to look for in a property management company. Like if I'm going to go and I've got a property and I want to place it, what are some specific things I need to be asking of that company? So, but before we get into all that, some good teasers. Before we get into all that, Scott, I want to learn more about you.
Okay.
How did you even get into real estate? I know you live here in Birmingham. How did you even get into real estate?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I had a friend of mine that was a land developer, and I was in the financial industry doing mutual funds, stocks, bonds, that kind of thing. And I always looked at investments as everything was 40 years in the future. So I was selling hope and opportunity. If you do this for 40 years, you will retire and you have a lot of money in the bank, but today you don't. So I got introduced to real estate, and there's a physical structure there, and I realized I didn't have to sell or unsell. The house sold itself. Right. So it's here, you want it, I facilitate the deal, we put it together, and that's been 18 years ago. So I've been a top producer for most of my real estate career. Got into business consulting, and I got a call from the gentleman that bought RMI, which was actually Rental Managers. It's a 20-plus-year-old company. Said, hey, I bought it, and I need some help. So I came in, repurposed the company to RMI Realty Group, got us an MLS, put in some backbones and some infrastructure there. So we have a very state-of-the-art property management company. And so I was going to be there 6 months. It's now been 3.5 years, and things have grown into a very well-run, profitable property management company. And along those steps, I've owned 3 different real estate companies. So I really had no interest in being in property management, but it presented itself, and I realized we've got a really good niche in the industry because we are mom and pop, and we only manage a few several hundred, but we don't manage 1,000. And so I think one of the things looking for a good property manager is access to leadership. We're a local boots on the ground company where you can call, talk to the boss. I'm the vice president of the company. You can talk to someone. Most complaints that I get from most people with other property management companies, I can't ever talk to anybody. I just feel
Totally.
I'm a number. No one calls me back. No one's managing my property. I can't come sit down and speak with anyone. So we offer a unique perspective on real estate as a whole, not just property management. So if you had an investment idea, we've seen about everyone you can see in 18 years, and you want to talk about property values and things of that. We offer a lot more to go along with property management.
Yeah.
But I get the mom and pop that wants to manage their own. If you've got the time and the patience for it, we're in a very problematic industry. We solve problems. So unless you're really good at solving problems and you just love that, most of my owners talk. We think about. I don't want to spend 10% for a property management fee. And for Alaria, we do our property management fee at 8% as a perk to you guys,
right.
Because you are investors, and we hope one turns into 10 and 10 turns into 20.
For sure.
So we become very investor centric, where we develop all of our processes around you, the property owners, not just individuals.
For sure.
So that's one of the niches we have in our industry. But there's going to come a time when you're going to need more time to shop for properties, find those fix and flips or whatever it is that you do, and dealing with headaches is really not where you want to spend most of your time. I always tell people in property management, you can do everything right and it still turns out wrong.
Totally.
So there are professional tenants out there that know how to, woo and talk to you about getting into property. So we take the emotion out of it. We manage the lease. We manage your property management agreement. Not that we're insensitive, but we don't get caught up in hey, I can't pay my rent this month because my car blew up on I-65. I mean, we manage your transaction, and a lot of times I think the biggest downturn for an owner is they get too caught up in the life of a tenant. And next thing you know, you're 4 months behind, and it's turned into a really bad situation.
Yeah.
Which is about the time we get that call.
For sure.
We step in and try to solve that the best that we can.
Before it starts blowing up.
Yeah, before it blows up, because there's going to be a blow up. You're going to have great tenants, and you're going to have tenants you wish you'd never seen before. We're professional screeners. We have software in place that we screen. Full criminal background checks, FICO scores, liens, judgments, terrorist watch list, your national sex offender list, moving violations, drug convictions, whatever you can dream of, we screen for it. So I don't think our mantra would be screen. So unless you have access to screen them to that extent, that 12 months is dependent directly on that screening. So I like to tell people you can go from, the way we put someone in your property, they've got to have a major life event to go from a great tenant to a bad tenant in 12 months. Someone died, I lost my job, it's got to be a major life event other than, hey, I just can't pay my bills this month. Because those people don't get on our properties.
For sure.
Period.
So, Scott, you've given us some really good stuff, and I'm going to want to dive in. I've been taking some notes. I want to dive into some of those issues that you've been bringing up specifically, but I want to go back to something you said in the very beginning. You were a top producer.
Yes, sir.
Tell us more about that. Like, what? Just selling properties. That's what you were doing. You're just a realtor.
I started off in the development business, which is kind of ironic.
Like land development.
Land development.
For commercial or for residential?
For residential subdivisions.
Okay.
I was new in the industry. I started with a relatively new real estate company in town, and they came to me and said, hey, we want to put you on payroll, and we want new developments on the ground, so go out there and learn how to do it. So luckily I got paid to learn development, which is in a commission-driven industry,
right.
Is great.
It's hard to come by. So what year would this have been?
Well, let's see, 2001 or 2,
okay.
Possibly.
Yep.
So that's how I cut my teeth in real estate. So I got to see, raw dirt from the beginning to the end, which takes about 2 years to put a development on the ground before you start building structures on it. got into home designs.
Wow.
So, back when what I call pickup truck builders would come in, there'd be 5 of them that take down a 100 lot subdivision, and everybody's, owns, a few of those lots. We build spec homes, but unfortunately the market crashed. And then y'all all know about that. And it was a very painful, I had builders and developers committing suicide in the parking lot of Lowe's. I mean, it was really a disaster. So I kind of rebuilt myself, and took a break from real estate for about a year, opened up an outdoor fireplace and kitchen business. We built kitchens and fireplaces and decorative stamped concrete, and I've always been an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I didn't want to work for somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
so we did that for a little while, sold that company. It was very successful. We were over on 280 and had some displays. But I never got out of real estate. I did a lot of BPOs, which are broker price opinions, for a failing property, where there'd be short sales, foreclosures. So I was a real student of the business, and so I enjoy every facet of real estate. I enjoy the art of putting together a deal when there's not a deal.
Right.
And I'm a problem solver. I've trained a lot of agents in the past. I was actually a mentor trainer of the year with REMAX, and I would always ask a student, so what are you in business to do? And they say, you sell real estate. And I said, no, you're not. You're in business of solving problems. Properties sell themselves. If Sally Sue wants that house, you can't unsell that house.
Right.
She's going to buy that house.
Right.
But you've got to solve the problems to get that house.
For sure.
Financing, appraisal issues. And property management has its own host of problems. And
Right. So before we get to that,
yes, sir.
So you were approached by the guy from RMI to come in and just kind of start property management, or just kind of build it?
Well, it was a 20-plus-year-old company. So
Right.
It was rental managers. The man that owned that was worked into his 90s. So good news is you can work in this business till you're old. So that's always an encouragement. And I was consulting for John Maxwell. I got certified as a business coach with John Maxwell. And so I was consulting real estate, new owners of different things, brought me in basically as a 6-month consultant on how to form a profitable property management company, with the pitfalls of that and how to make it successful. 6 months turned into over 3 years, and now that's grown, and we're very, very healthy.
So the question I had was, when you were first approached about property management, because you admitted a minute ago, has its own host of problems, own series of issues and stuff, and it's a tough business. Why did you do that?
Well, to be transparent about it, I was less than excited about it. I was excited about the consulting part. I had a 6-month contract, and it looked great, and so I gave them a hard 6 months. Was not real excited about property management because I come from the sales side, and the only thing I've ever heard about property management is difficult. Tenants tear up your property, it's a disaster, don't do it. And but I realized when I got into it and started developing these systems, it was the systems that smoothed out the bumps in the road.
Like what? Like, give me an example of a good system.
Well, like property management software. It's out there, it's available, it's not inexpensive. But if you're going to manage 25, 30, 50, or 100 doors, because they're all sold by doors, how many properties you have, it takes care of all the accounting. It takes care of 7-day demand letters. It takes care of eviction processes. It takes care of work orders and maintenance and all those things.
And this stuff was not in place when you showed up?
No, it was all manual. Very manual, labor intensive, lots of paperwork, a lot of systems, quite frankly, run like a mom and pop, and there was a lot of room for failure. Mm-hmm. And that would be a caution that I have as a mom and pop doing it yourself. Mm-hmm. Experience is an expensive thing. You can either pay for it or you can learn the hard way, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. But you're still going to pay for it one way or the other.
In some cases, you're going to pay more.
You're going to pay more. And what I like to say, and not a sales pitch, but what I like to tell people is if we're monitoring the value of your property in any given neighborhood, a lot of times we garner the highest amount of rent because of our marketing. So you may stick a sign in the yard and think it's worth $750, when in fact it could be worth $8.25. and with good marketing, you may get $75 or $100 more a month. That pays for a good property management company. So it's really, we help you make money, not just take money off your bottom line.
So this is let's keep talking about this, because this is a tough issue for some who are out there who believe that typically it's 10%. I know you said you're offering 8% to Alaria members, but typically it's 10%. For the person that's out there, like, I don't want to give up the 10%. If it rents for $1,000 a month, that's $12,000. I don't want to give up $1,200 in a year, and that's 1 month's rent. I don't want to give up a month plus of rent. I can just do it myself. Well, all the reasons you just named, I'm trying to learn this too, because I've got a lot of property out there too that I've been really bad with this. But what it really comes down to, aside from the stuff that you just mentioned, you may possibly get more rent, it's time.
It's time. Get your life
It
back.
is time. And if you just have one property coming up for rent every once in a while, then you have no system in place to continually market to great tenants. Talk about that for a second, Scott. Continually marketing for great tenants instead of just every once in a while.
Well, that's one of the things I get most passionate about, because I come from a marketing background. I came from real estate sales. I carry that over into rentals. And, we talk about days on the market. So think about this for just a second. You have a property comes up, once every 3 months, and it's time for you to go out there and put a sign in the yard. And boy, I hope somebody drives by, takes down my number and calls me to put them in that property. So every single call you get that may be sporadic, you feel like, I've got to make this work, which usually leads you into making the wrong decision because you feel desperate. The day we put a property on the market, it goes out to over 300 websites instantaneous. HotPads, Realtor.com, Trulia, Zillow. So our net is so wide, our average days in the market's less than 30 days. So just by gaining put someone in your property 30 days quicker than you can, we have already paid for our services for an entire year.
Totally.
So you can sit out there for 90 days and feel like you saved that 10%, you've already lost money.
And then let's take it even a step further, because you mentioned that the systems that you put in place, as far as it automatically prints out the 7-day letter, stuff like that. So I'm going through a situation right now where it took me about 2 months to get someone out, which is actually pretty good.
Quick. That's pretty quick.
It took me about 2 months to get somebody out, but I never put a demand letter out. We're just having dialogue through text and dialogue through conversation. Hey, you know what? Just clean it up when you leave. I know he lost his job many months ago. Just clean it up when you leave. Well, I'm not going to come after you for anything. Well, he said he was going to leave in a week, and it ended up being 2 months. And that's something, if I had that with a property manager, first of all, they would have known, I feel like, that he lost his job 4 months back,
right.
And they could have been working something out then to try to get him out a lot quicker until it became way too late. I ended up losing 2 months, and now I'm going to lose another month and a half because I got to get it rehabbed and I got to get it marketed to get back on.
Well, and Brian, and here's another situation too. So you're into it 3 or 4 months, and the guys, hey, I made a bunch of promises to get out. But you're Brian Tripp. You're an individual. So if you're an individual managing your property, you're still Brian. I know who you are.
Yep.
We've talked. Y'all might even have a relationship that you developed by texting or phone. You feel like, hey, I know this guy. But the moment you put a company entity inside, then all of a sudden it changes the entire dynamic of the transaction. Oh my gosh, a 7-day letter just showed up. Now I'm going to an attorney. Now the attorney's calling me. You feel like I either got to get my stuff in order or I got to get out.
Yeah.
Because the mood of the camp is so much different than you as an individual. Because you kind of get led down this path of, well, next week, I've got a job interview next week, Brian. I think things are going to turn around. I'm going to be able to send you half a month. Next thing you know, another month's going by.
Yeah.
And now there comes a point you're just begging, please, just leave my property, please.
Yeah.
And then you get attorney involved, and he'll say, well, did you put a 7-day demand on the door? Did you send this document? And you go, no, I didn't. So now it just drags on and on. And if you've only got 1 or 2 properties, you'll scratch your head going, why in the world did I ever get in the property management business?
Yeah.
It's not that it's a bad business, but you got to be educated and prepared.
It is
to
a bad
deal.
business.
Well,
for me,
well,
it's a bad business for me. I don't want. If I've learned anything in real estate in 6 years, it's I do not want to be a property manager. That's the biggest thing I've learned.
well, you got to be a really good, on top of your game problem solver, because property management is solving problems.
But that takes time.
It takes time. So,
And if you've got all this other stuff going on like I do, I don't want to devote that time to this stuff.
no, because it's not going to pay you. You need to go do what you do best. Go find another deal. Go sell something. Go buy something that's going to make you some money, and let someone else that's what they do for a living. And actually, if you look at what it costs to manage that property, 8 to 10% is just it's a small drop in the bucket for what you could get if you're with the right property management company. And I got invited to come into Alaria by Joe Turney, which a lot of you may know Joe, and because our shop really does try to do things completely different. We're out of the box thinkers. We try to streamline the headaches that come with property management. And one of the assets that we bring to that is, screening like nobody's business.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about screening tenants. So you're doing things completely different. You mentioned earlier, state-of-the-art property management company. I want to talk about some of these things. And if one of those things is screening tenants, and I know you kind of mentioned some things that you do earlier, some of the checks. What are some things, the hard-headed guy that's listening to this, that's going to keep trying to do it himself, let's keep giving him some tips. He'll come around eventually. But what can we do as individuals who are trying to manage our own property? What can we do to try to screen for tenants better?
Well, first and keymost, you need to meet whichever tenant that's applying for your property. Get a character read on them. We're all in the people business. If somebody pulls up, what they're driving in, what they say. If you do not have the tools to screen someone, tell them to go to freecreditreport.com. Go pull a free credit report. Send you that. You got to have some basis of how you're going to make a decision. How many days? How many years they've been on the same job? If they moved jobs, are they in the same industry? How much money do they make? And here's a big key: do they pay their cell phone bill? Do they pay their power bill? If you look on someone's credit report and they've been with every phone carrier that's in our area, that's a bad sign. If you can't pay your cell phone in today's environment, you're not going to pay your bills.
Wow.
So and then there's that professional tenant, and this is the guy that talks good, looks good, maybe even have a decent credit score, may pay your security deposit, which never put anybody in your property without 1 month security deposit. Never, never, never. Never discount that. Not a half a month, a full month. And by law, you can only have one month. That's it. It's the maximum you can get. But get it. If they can't pay their bills, cell phone bills, power bills, if they got the water turned off in Birmingham, but that professional guy is pretty slick. His goal is to pay you a little bit of security deposit, may make the first month rent, and he's done. He's not moving out. You're going to have to evict him. So he knows if he plays those cards right, he could be in there 3 to 6 months and pay no rent. And you can't get blood from a turnip. He's not going to pay. He came in with that mentality. You got to be able to spot that guy.
Yeah. How can we spot that guy?
Screen. And just a free credit report. I've gotten doctored credit reports before where they don't show up on our system and for whatever reason. And there's indicators such as your driver's license address needs to match where you're living. If it doesn't, sometimes that can be a flag. How long did they live where they said they lived? How long they worked? You need to do an employment verification. You need to do a rental verification. Where did they come from? Did they pay their rent? How did they leave? They give you a notice. But most people never check the background, and we do, because you're going to get caught with that guy that's not going to pay you.
And so this is a tip I learned a long time ago, is when a lot of people, even if you are doing this yourself, you probably have a rental application, even if you find one online.
Yeah, basic rental, Google it.
So there's a place on there for, prior landlord, work history, and here's the thing that I've learned is most mom and pops won't call them.
No.
They won't call. They've got the information there, and they won't even do the call.
Well, it's kind of intimidating, and you've got to send a formal type letter to the last place that they lived.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the last place is so happy to get them out, they just give
Right.
you a good referral,
Right.
as if they were golden, because they're just thrilled they're gone. So you can't base your entire decision process on just a good mental verification.
Right.
Because sometimes it's what they don't say that could be important, not what they put on that piece of paper.
For sure. So, a couple of things you mentioned that you guys do things completely different. Besides screening tenants, name a couple other things that you guys might be doing that's more state of the art.
Well,
Let's
let's talk about the owner's money. We treat property like it's our property, and one way we do that, we have an in-house maintenance guy. He's on salary. He didn't make commission on what he fixes. I always say he's a master at fixing most everything and licensed at nothing. So he's the guy that can do the little HVAC work. He can do electrical. He can do plumbing. He can do those things. If you call a contractor, they're typically going to be twice as much as what we charge. But we do that as a courtesy. A lot of companies in town say, hey, put $1,000 in your account. You don't get notified when there's a problem. We spend your money. Hey, we're out of money. Can you put more money in your maintenance account? That's the wrong answer. So what we do is we have a tenant portal. The tenants can go online, make a maintenance request. We look at that. We pass it to the owner. And we say, hey, how you want to handle it? You may have an Uncle Joe that's an HVAC contractor. You may have, your brother may be a plumber. So we take care of it, or you take care of it. If we take care of it, we use our guy. If it crosses a certain skill set, we'll bid it out to contractors that we use on everything. But you're in complete control of your maintenance dollars, and that is if you've ever been with a property management company, that is a huge problem. All I hear is, I just need more money in my account. I need more money in my account. You'll have an owner's portal, so you can go in online, look at your owner's portal. Money's coming in, money's going out. We take care of your 1099s at the end of the year, so you're fully involved with your property, just like hopefully you would be if you were managing it yourself. But typically, smaller mom and pop that's got a few properties that manage it. Unfortunately, we kind of go by the seat of our pants approach. We just kind of wing it and hope it all turns out right. And it'd be kind of like going to a brain surgeon. You wouldn't want your brain surgeon to hope this all turns out right. You'd hope he's got some kind of skill level. So I wouldn't, but for the guy that wants to save a few dollars, one or two properties. But if you're going to be in the investment property business, you should aspire to have 5, 10, 15, 20 properties, because to make a living at it, you're going to have more than one or two or three. A lot of people bail out of the real estate investment industry too soon because their taste is exactly what you said. It's too complicated. I never wanted to be a property manager. All I hear is bad things about that.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of truth in that. So don't go that route.
Right.
Go where someone's going to turn that bad experience into a good experience, and you go, you know what, that worked out pretty good. Maybe I'll go get another one, and then I go get another one.
Yeah.
But sometimes most of our owners come from larger property management companies, and I just want to touch on that real second, just a quick second.
No, well, actually, I'm about to ask you that question.
Ask me that question, right?
Because that was literally the next question I'm going to ask you. So this is what I see from the outside looking in. Totally my opinion. I want you to chime in where you think. The property management companies I see that get to, well, first of all, if they don't have 100 or 200, it's tough.
They're not gonna make it
because they're trying to get their feet wet still. But once I feel like they get to 600, 700, and the ones that are at 800, 1,000, there's
2,000.
There's a couple in here that are like that. The sweet spot to me seems to be in that 250 range to maybe that 600 range.
You're exactly
and
right.
It sounds to me like that's where you guys are. I want you to explain why. I think it is. I have my own opinions, but why do you think that is? Like where there's like that sweet spot.
Well, unless you can have a lot of people on staff, because there's so many details. Think about the one property you may own right now, and how many details you have to deal with, especially if a problem arises or you got maintenance issues. So you multiply that times 700, and think about how many people you would have to employ and take care of to oversee that. That's why you can't talk to a human being. When we, here's a question that I would ask is, how long have you been in business and how many properties do you manage? Because a lot of people got into property management business when the market tanked and they needed something else to do. A lot of realtors said, I'm not selling houses, maybe I should manage properties. So they've been at 3, 4, 5 years and they stay in that 100, 150 range. Well, the downside of that is the owner being with them is they don't have enough money and resources to take care of your property because they're not making enough money
That's
on
right.
your 8 to 10%.
That's right.
So how much money can they really afford to spend on your property? So that sweet spot you're talking about, the 200 to 650, 700, you can have a medium-sized staff. You can have good processes in place, a good maintenance gal on staff who can help maintain, save your owner's money. And if an owner's got a problem, they can call the boss. They can
Right.
call me, the VP. You
Right.
can talk to a human being. You
Right.
can come sit in their office.
Right.
But there comes a time where they're just trying to keep the ship afloat
That's right.
and driving straight.
And that's what I've learned.
And a lot of our owners come from companies like that, through investors that help them buy some property, which is not been said, well, here, put your property with this company over here, XYZ, and they realize, I feel like I'm by myself. All they want is money, more money, more money, more money in my account, in maintenance. I don't have control of anything. And they don't have time to be personable.
That's right.
And when we took over this 20-plus-year-old company, our goal was never to have 1,000+ doors. Never. We don't wake up on Monday going, I sure wish we had 1,000 doors to take care of. And doors are typically how people talk about property management, So, we're into that 200 to 300, range, and we want to grow to about 500.
Right.
So
that's why we're with RMI. That's why we're talking to new owners.
Right.
But that is our goal, because we're only going to be a small shop. But in the property management business, that's an okay thing to be.
Yeah.
Because anything
No, I
other
agree.
than that, you really start going backwards.
Right.
As a company.
I agree.
And
So you mentioned, Scott, you mentioned some stuff that maybe we should look for in a property management company. What are some questions we should be asking?
how long you been in business?
Yeah.
If they're a realtor and just they got into it because the market crashed. Most of those guys are now wanting to get back out of it
Right.
because the market's picked up.
That's right.
So they'll take care of themselves. But what kind of experience does your staff have? How long you been doing real estate? How long you been a property manager? Can I come by and meet your staff?
Yeah.
That's a big one. Where do you work from? Most property managers, unfortunately, if you walked into their office, you'd probably walk out of their office saying, well, if it doesn't look any better than that, I probably really don't want them to manage my property.
Why is that?
It's just the facilities. Walk in. If they're going to take care of your property, when you think about
You're talking about from a cleanliness standpoint?
cleanliness,
Okay.
just from
Okay, gotcha.
that perspective where you walk in and feel comfortable.
Gotcha.
They can take care of their own space and transfer that to taking care of your space.
Gotcha.
You just know. I mean, if you want to interview a mechanic, you would hope his car runs. I mean, it's kind of funny, but you hear about mechanics that drive cars that don't run, painters that don't paint their own houses. Well, property management companies don't take care of their own offices. But it says a lot about that company,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So we have a state-of-the-art office. You come by, it's clean. You get a sense of professionalism that these guys are here in business taking care of my stuff.
Right.
And
So Scott, I want to know if I'm potentially interested in using your company, because it sounds great. Sounds like something I want to explore a little bit more. Do you have a price range in rents that you would manage,
well, here's the great thing about what we do.
or areas that you would
because
manage?
we're a full service brokerage. I'm a licensed broker.
Right. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
You have to have a broker to have a property management company. So Brian, if you brought a portfolio and say, hey, I've got 10 houses, 3 of them are vacant. I need tenants. So we would do a market analysis for rent. We're involved in the local MLS. We have a rental MLS. So we have data that you don't have unless you're a real estate agent. So we know what the market rent is for any given neighborhood. What's the bottom, median, what's the cap? If your property looks good, what's the top of the market, so we're not going to be on the market for over 30 days. That's another key, that you may be renting your property $50 to $75 too cheap. When we took over this property management company, we had properties that were $200 under market because they had no tools.
Right.
They just didn't know. But whatever we did last year, that's what we're doing this year.
Right.
The market got away from you and you didn't even know it.
Right.
So we always, every time a lease comes available, we always do a new analysis to make sure we're not leaving any money on the table.
So, but what's that range? Do you have like a minimum area or a minimum rent range that you would not go under?
And I'll tell you why. When we got into, Alarita and working with investors, most of our properties range probably $1,250, $1,350 a month. It's about probably our norm. We have properties in Mountain Brook, Vestavia that rent for $3,000 or $4,000 a month, and we've got Section 8 properties downtown that rent for $580. $6.25.
So let me ask you this then. What's the challenge for you as a property management company to have such a wide range? Because there's going to be a different type of tenant in these houses.
Well, the more expensive the rent, the less hassle the tenant is. And it just goes with the territory.
Right.
And, but you can have we've got a few houses in Mountain Brook. They pay $2,800 a month. Never hear from them. They just pay the rent like clockwork. Not a lot to do. When you get below $1,000 a month, all of a sudden the dynamic changes of your tenant.
Yes.
So if you get down to $650, $750, you're in a whole new different dynamic.
Yes.
And a lot of first-time investors get into cheaper properties because they're cheap.
So my question is, me as a property owner of a house that's going to rent for $750, because it doesn't sound like you've been doing those kind of houses for too long. What kind of dynamics are there for you as a property management company to make sure, because those are the hardest properties to manage.
They are.
You go to any property management company and they're all doing it badly.
Well, here's
so give me some confidence that you're gonna.
Well, first of all, we're
do a really good job on my property.
The properties that you're talking about are probably involved in Section 8.
Could be.
The majority of them are. We're in every housing authority in Jefferson and Shelby County. So there's a lot of rules and regulations, and that's one of the hindrances, in my opinion, about smaller property management companies that can't adhere to all the rules and regulations. So when you have a problem, it's just a problem for a long time. I mean, you've got to go down there, you've got to meet face to face and talk about this problem, that problem.
Totally.
Inspection from them is different than a regular house inspection. They're going to re-inspect it. If you miss your first inspection, they won't come back for 2 or 3 weeks. If you fail it, they're not coming back for 2 or 3 weeks. So putting someone in there could all of a sudden turn into 30 days to 4 months. But it's not a bad market to be in if you understand the market when you got in it. Right. If you just get in it thinking, I'm going to get a check from the government every month and this is going to be a piece of cake,
right,
I would say you probably need to get a little more education before you just venture off down that path, because there's a lot of things you need to learn. But to compress those time frames, you really need someone to walk you through. Even if you said, ultimately I want to manage all my properties. Well, for the first 2 or 3, you may want to come with a company like us who can walk you through the processes of how all that's supposed to work.
That's right. Which is a great benefit of having someone who is obviously local, someone who, when you call them up, they're going to actually answer the phone. That's right. Those kinds of things.
Well, and when you
because I've experienced the opposite.
Yeah, and when you get a Section 8 property, they have an owner's education class you can take at Section 8. They sit down, they tell you, how to be a good owner, how to take care of your property, how to deal with our systems that we have here. Take those classes, and the first time you join that, if you're an individual, it's mandatory, and it should be.
I agree.
But what you hear and what actually happens sometimes are two completely different animals.
Definitely.
So, and then, once you build a portfolio, I would say always strive to get higher rents and move up neighborhoods. Move up to the next level. Move up to where you hope that you're paying in rent from $950 to $1350 a month. Because it typically means you bought a nicer property, it's in better shape, the rehab wasn't as expensive, tenants aren't going to be as much of a problem because they're paying more rent.
Yep.
And that's, but that comes with a caution too, because we have evictions and they pay $1,800 a month, $1,200 a month. So it's not completely problem free,
Right, of course.
but you have less problems.
It's property management.
That's property management. Well, you might as well say problem management. That's probably really more a better description. And so I've had people almost hug me when I take their 10 properties from them. So don't call me anymore. And to me, the way property management works the best is when the tenant never knows who the owner is.
Mm.
So you don't want to be known. You don't want them calling you. If you drive up on a car on the weekend just to look at a property that may be yours, don't tell them who you are.
For sure.
You know, because in today's internet world, they'll figure out who you are. But it's best if they don't know who you are.
I agree. Scott Long, RMI Realty Group. Scott, tell people how they could get a hold of you. Can you give us a phone number? Can you give us an email address?
Yeah. Call me at, this is my personal cell. Let me give you my office number first. We have two numbers. 205-968-3772 is the direct sales line. 205-968-3803 is the incoming line. I give out my personal cell to owners for a very important reason, because I want them to call me. 205-447-9922. 205-447-9922. I do answer my phone. That's the key to our success. If I miss you, leave a voicemail. I will call you back.
Are you a texter? Can we text you?
You can text me, call me, email me, and my email is RMI Realty, REALTY group.com. And I spell realty because some people put an I in it and it don't exist.
That's the website. What's your email address?
Scott at RMIRealtyGroup.com.
Scott at RMIRealtyGroup.com. We're going to put all this information in the show notes, so if you're driving down the road right now, don't feel like you got to break your neck to write this stuff down. It's all right there in the show notes for you. You can just go back later and call Scott.
And let me throw out another perk for Brian and Alaria. If you just want to talk about real estate and you got some ideas, we're kind of an idea, out of the box thinking company. Get on my schedule, calendar, come in my office, and let's sit down and talk about your plan. Brian is a master at throwing out, new ideas and plans. But if you want to see that from a real estate agent or a property management perspective on how to get that all lined up and started, be glad to talk to you. There's
awesome.
no cost involved. So we just want to be here to help.
So I say this all the time. I think anytime you can surround yourself with people who have been in the real estate business for a long period of time, like Scott, take advantage of it. Come to our meetings and don't just sit down in the chairs. Come to the back of the room and just have a conversation with these guys that have been doing this business for so long. There's invaluable information. So definitely get in touch with Scott, RMI Realty Group. All the contact information is going to be right there in the show notes for you guys. Scott, I really do appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having us.
No, I appreciate it. Guys, hit that subscribe button. We love you so much. We will see you next time.